Boom. This episode, man, is dedicated to Kevin Samuels, man. I know some of y'all not gonna like this. I know some of y'all not gonna like what I have to say. Hear me out though. I just hear me out.
Calibrating cybernetics.
Talk to him now.
AT Andre.
Come on, Dre.
Yep. Tripping with Let's Go. Woo! Tripping with Theobold.
What's your name?
Theo so bold.
Yeah.
Driggity. Let's go. Tripping with Theobold. Tripping.
What are we doing?
Tripping with Theobold.
Come on, Dre.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? And welcome to another episode of Tripping with Theobold. I'm your host, Andre Theobold. Welcome to the show. Before I go any further, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend, and do all that fun internet stuff. Like the old people say, AT is where it's at on most forms of social media. Make sure you follow me. So boom. This episode, man, is dedicated to Kevin Samuels, man. I know some of y'all not gonna like this. I know some of y'all not gonna like what I have to say. Hear me out though. I just hear me out. I appreciate what the brother did, man. Um, I really appreciate, the fact that he stood on he stood on 10 toes, man. Like he didn't change. If you noticed, when Kevin Samuels was in the spotlight, he didn't waver or change who he was or what his opinion was, man. He was very direct. He was very articulate. Um, and you know, I just have a lot of respect for that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is to be commended. That that is that is the stuff of men. Men need to be more like that. Like a lot of times men can get, we can get swayed by money or popularity or by people's opinions. And part of being a man is you got to be a rock. Pause. You gotta stand firm in what you believe and what you're saying. So I really appreciate that. Um, uh, I remember when my mom, this was when I was in Buffalo one summer. I went to go, this was like a few years ago, but I remember my mom, I was like watching like a lot of different YouTubers. I was watching Kwame Brown, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I like Kwame Brown." And I didn't know he was that articulate, and I didn't know he had all that to say, and he had that kind of point of view on things, and it was real impressive to watch him speak his mind. And I was like, "Yo, have you heard of Kevin Samuels?" And she's like, "Kevin Samuels, like, why does that name sound familiar? Why does that name? Oh, that's the nigga in the suits. That's the nigga that be wearing all them suits." Nah. She was like, man, fuck him. Nah, he's terrible. He's horrible. My mom hated Kevin Samuels, man. Like she spoke with the same kind of vitriol for Kevin Samuels. Like she had the same kind of vitriol that she has for like Corey Holcomb and Geno Jennings. Like those three people, like I watch a lot of them cats, you know what I'm saying? Um and My mom, man, yeah, she couldn't stand Kevin Samuels. But all jokes aside, the thing about Kevin Samuels that a lot of people missed his message, right? A lot of people missed his point, right? People were listening with their emotions as opposed to their intellect and reason, you know? Kevin Samuels was defining a small group of people, 1%. He was defining one group of people who he is associated with, who he communicates with, or who he communicated with, based upon like their wants and their desires, you know. And Kevin Samuels never said don't go after what it is you want. He never said don't go after what it is you want, but he said just have realistic expectations about what it is you want to receive, you know? So a lot of women were calling him up, hey, how come I can't find a high value man? What do I have to do to be a high value man? You know, and Kevin came with came with the logistics. He came with the numbers. He came with the requirements, right? That's a term that we use in systems engineering a lot. You know, when you're a systems engineer, it's all about the requirements, you know, like what is required, right? What does the system need? You know? So um he never said don't go after what you want, but just if you're going after this, this is what you're gonna expect, and this is what you're gonna receive in return, you know? And they didn't want to hear that. And to me, the funny thing was about his platform is how people will go on his platform and try to argue with him on his platform. Like he thought about this way more than you thought about it. And I felt like this whole thing was like this phenomenon was kind of like a sword in the stone, like a King Arthur and the sword in the stone moment. You know, people were going to his platform and they were trying to conquer him on his platform. And it's like, nah, it's like he thought his shit out, you know? It is what it is, you know? I I also, like I said, I really appreciate the brother's work, man. You know, I appreciate what he did when he was on this earth. Um, you know, one thing that that I or one reason why I appreciate what he did or why he said what he said or the stance that he took, the reason why I appreciate it is because um I had to deal with this shit, but from another angle. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Let's talk about that shit, you know? So um when I was ever since I was young, like even like let's just say middle school, high school, college, you know what I'm saying? Um I didn't realize or I didn't have the knowledge that I wasn't in the 20%, right? The 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of the women are attracted to 20% of the men, you know? So he's talking about, you know, the 1% of men. So it's even a smaller window of the 20%. You know what I mean? So when I was young, when I was, you know, wet behind the ears, you know, I fed into people's hope. I sucked in, pause. I didn't mean to use suck in. I took in um all that Disney hype, all that Disney talk, you know, like I watched like Disney fantasy fairy tale movies, you know, and how, you know, women are looking for they Prince Charming and all that shit, you know. Um, I was a sucker for that shit, you know. I got, but you see, this is me having accountability for that, right? I can acknowledge that I was once a fool. I was a fool once, you know. I might still be a fool, but I'm learning. That's the whole point, right? Is um um I'm not beyond reproach. So anyways, um with all that being said, when I was younger, like, you know, I was told, I heard from like just masses of women, man, I'm too short, too ugly, you know, look at your hairline, you don't have enough swag. It was always an excuse. You know what I'm saying? So from a young age, from middle school to high school to college, I got beat down by just women's point of view on me, you know? And I'm even gonna give you the classic move, right? Like I had women who like I had female friends when I was in college and I was interested in their friends. And I would try to, you know, they would see me trying to holler at their friend and they would pull me aside and they would be like, yeah, nah, she out of your league. Yeah, you not her type. Yeah, she out of your league. Yeah, you too short, nigga. Yeah, nah, nigga. Yeah, you too dark. Yeah, nah, you too ugly. You know, like I had women pull me aside, like women, like female, like I had female friends of mine pull me aside and tell me that, you know. I remember I had a female friend of mine in college who um I was like cool with. Well, I thought I was cool with. You know, after school, after class, I would go to her room, you know what I'm saying? And we would just like chit chat and we would talk and vent about the struggles that we were going through every day in school, you know what I mean? And we would laugh, we joke, man. She was fun, you know what I'm saying? And she was attractive, you know what I'm saying? And, I was attracted to her, you know what I'm saying? And I remember, you know, I remember one day I went to her room and I wanted just to plant a seed that, hey, I know that I'm not your type now, but maybe we can be friends and down the road. I just wanted to see where I stood, So I remember I went to her room and she was getting ready to go out to a party, um, and she was in the bathroom or whatever, getting ready or whatever. I was in her room, and then she called me in the bathroom and was like, "Hey, how do I look?" And we're looking at each other in this mirror, this big mirror, and I'm like, I said, "Yeah, you look good," but also, you know what? I was like, "Man, hey, man, I think we look good together." Man, she looked at me and cussed me the fuck out, man. She was like, how dare you say something like that?" And, like, it was like, it was like she was too good for me. You know what I'm saying? So after that, we just stopped being friends, you know what I'm saying? Which is, understandable. That's how life happens. You find out what people believe and how they think, and either you grow together or you grow apart. So, anyways, so females had no problem telling me to my face that I wasn't enough, you know? And all Kevin Samuels was doing was Kevin Samuels was doing the same thing. He was saying, look, if you want to be in this 1%, you know, like, these guys in this 1% are looking for these criteria, and if you get inside of this criteria, just so happen, and let's say that if they even were able to get the attention of a 1% dude or a 1%er, you know, um, even if the woman was able to get the attention of a 1%er, a lot of them weren't aware of what that came with, like that came with a cost, like these guys are dating women that are like way more attractive than them. And they're dating more women that are way more attractive than the woman that got lucky, that got his attention. So he might just tell you to your face, look, I'm high value. I date who I want to date when I want to date. Either you get on board or not, and most women don't want to hear that, you know, like, I mean, it's ruthless. I don't agree with it, but I didn't make the rules up. It's just human nature, So, you know, my whole standpoint is if I had to hear that growing up when I was a kid, all the way through high school and college or whatever, if I had to hear that and I had no control over that, like I had no control over my skin complexion, I had no control over my height, I had no control over my hairline, I had no control over none of that shit, but I was able to accept it. I took it. I took it on the chin. Pause. You know, I took it. Being told I'm not enough. I took that shit. I said, you know what? I get it. I see where I measure up in society. No big deal. Let me work on the shit that I know I can work on. Like I can work on my physical health and I can work on my finances, which is what I did, you know? But the women that were calling up to Kevin Samuels, like they basically had control over the situation, right? You had women up there calling in that had kids, that been married multiple times before, that were overweight. All women in those situations, 99.9% of the time, they could control that. They made a choice for them to be in that situation. They made a choice for them to be in that situation. And if they didn't make a choice for them to be in that situation, they had more control over I had at the age when I was in middle school, high school, and college. You know what I'm saying? So if I had to deal with it, if I had to accept my place in this hierarchy or whatever, they can accept a hierarchy in this situation. You know what I mean? So I felt I wasn't sympathetic, you know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't sympathetic to the women that were calling up to Kevin Samuels and he was like, just saying, look, you don't measure up. Like I didn't feel any type of way about that. I didn't feel bad about that. And I want to go deeper into that because I feel like you have men that are, I feel like you have men that are in the 20% and above and don't realize it. And they saw what Kevin Samuels was saying and they were like disagreeing with him. And I think they were disagreeing with him because they didn't feel, or they never felt the backlash that someone that's not in the 20% felt, if that makes sense. Like, so if you never experienced that, you're going to, of course, speak to the affirmative. You're going to speak to what has gotten you to where you've been at, you know? So like I said, man, the dude did good work, man. I'm glad he, was around when he was around and put the work out that he put out, because there's deeper conversations that need to be had to where we discuss all this shit. You know what I'm saying? Because the key word in all this is accountability. If I can take accountability for things that I have no control over, then damn it, the women could take they need to take accountability for the shit that they had control over. I'm not gonna have no sympathy for that. Never will. Like I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. I'm gonna give another story, another situation, man. I remember just so y'all can see, like I said, I'm not trying to stand on no soapbox. I'm not trying to play my violin or none of that shit. I'm just telling you like where I've been, what I've been through, and where I'm at, and if people don't want to listen, then oh well, they don't want to listen. They don't want to be honest with themselves. We got all this technology, we got all this internet, all these phones, all this shit, and people want more communication, but really people don't want to hear what they don't want to hear. That's what it's about. People don't want to hear what doesn't agree with their reality. That's what all this shit is boiling down to, So I remember I was in middle school and, I took pride, like, little old me, I took pride in me. You know what I'm saying? I would go to the barbershop, get my shit shaped up. You know what I'm saying? I had my little clothes picked out. I was clean. I made sure I had clean clothes. They weren't the best clothes, but they were clothes that I wore with like pride. And I had, I just believed in myself. You know what I'm saying? I wore clothes. They weren't like brand name shit. It was the shit that, was representative of me. Man, I remember one day I was standing outside of school and I had my back turned to the bus and I had like my backpack on and shit. And I was facing away from the bus and I had on a striped shirt, you know what I'm saying? And, this chick on the bus was like, hey boy, are you in the striped shirt in the backpack? Turn around. Hey, you. Yeah, you turn around. Nigga, you ugly. I thought you were cute. Never mind. That's the kind of shit I heard. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could have flipped out. I could have cussed that bitch out. I could have said a lot of mean shit, but I didn't. I'm just like, yo, I'm just not her type. So if I can accept that at that age, other people, when they get older, they can accept their situation that they in, and anyone that takes Kevin Samuel's side, people are going to be like, oh man, who hurt you? And man, no, look, nobody hurt me, nigga. I'm me, you know what I'm saying? But what I will say is that a lot of women would say, oh, well, they would try to discredit my experience. They'd be like, oh, well, all women aren't like that. And, oh, you were only in the 8th grade or 9th grade then. And that's different. No, that's not different. It's, if anything, that's even more impactful because I'm younger, right? So I'm hearing things and things are being reinforced on me at a younger age to where it's more impressionable, So if I can deal with that, the women that called into Kevin Samuels can deal with him saying whatever he said about them. And none of what he said was disrespectful. He was just saying, look, if you want to attract people in this stratosphere, you have to come with these things. And if you don't come with these things, you're probably not going to qualify. So he wasn't saying don't go after that. He was just saying you can do what you want, but this is why you fail. And he had the numbers to show that. So shout out to Kevin Samuels, man. RIP Kevin Samuels, man. I like the work that he did. I feel like it opened up another avenue of conversation that needs to be had until both sides are willing to have this conversation openly and honestly. We all gonna be where we at. We all gonna be where we at. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it is what it is. You know, my one criticism, of Kevin Samuel's platform is I could not stand his lives, man. His live streams were trash. Sorry, his live streams were. I don't want to use the word trash. His live streams were not for me. How about that? Or his live streams. I remember I tried to watch one of his live streams, and he was more about the numbers than he was the message in his live streams. You know, so I'll be listening to his live streams, and I'm trying to get the message. I'm trying to see the point he's trying to drive home, and all you'd hear him say is, "Hey, I see my viewers are going down. My views are going down. The number of viewers in here are going down. If it goes below 5,000, I'll cut this shit off. I'll play some bullshit, you know." And then he would play some bullshit or talk about nothing until we all went and got more people to watch his live stream. And I tried watching it one time. I was like, yeah, nah, I'll just wait until the video clips drop out, or I'll wait until the video clips drop. So that was my one criticism about his platform. But other than that, you know, like at the end of the day, you have to learn and accept how the world views you, right? You have to learn how the world views you, man. You know, and I was hard headed. You know, when I was in college, I was going after chicks that I felt were attractive, you know, but I always had one of their female friends pull me aside. Like they were like used car salesmen, you know, like they were like car salesmen, right? When you go to like a car salesman lot, and let's say that you're looking at this high end sports car that you want, and they're looking at you and how you dress, they'd be like, "Oh, you looking for this? Oh, no, man. You don't want that. That's too good for you. You got to go over here to the shit that you don't want. Come over here to the shit that you don't want and come and pick from this," you know? And, you know, I heard that time and time again. I heard that time and time out. And I'm going to tell you the difference between like men and women, right? Collectively speaking, from the collective, right? I'm not talking in absolutes. I mean, collectively speaking. Um, if I'm just giving you an example, right? If I would never tell a female that she's out of a league. I would never tell a female that she's out of her league when it came to friends of mine, right? If I got friends around me, I would never tell a female that says, "Hey, how about so and so? Like, is so and so interested?" Or something. I'll be like, you know what? I'm not gonna play telephone man. But what I would do in that situation is I would say, you know what? Hey, let's all hang out. Let's all meet up. Let's all hang out. And if you strike a natural connection with the dude, boom, have at it. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of women were like buffers to other dudes, man. Like they basically are quote unquote looking out for their girlfriends. You know what I'm saying? Which is, I mean, I get it. Um, you know, I get it. You know, like, um, man, my throat's getting woo. But nah, I mean, I get it. You know what I'm saying? It's like being mad that you not being mad that you're not in the 10% or 20% of the favorable people amongst the people. That's like getting mad over being short, you know? Like you can't control that shit. You know, like I got a funny story, man. Like I remember one time when I made the basketball team in high school, you know, it was a big deal. You know, I made the basketball team for the first time ever. This was the first time I was picked to be on a team based on my skill set. And I remember, you know, we're all obviously the same age, but I remember we're in the huddle and the coach was on his knee drawing up a play. And everyone around me had their hands on their knees and they're looking down. And I don't have my hands on my knees and I'm just like standing there and I'm like looking up like, oh, these niggas is taller than me. So me getting mad about not being as tall as they are is stupid. Right. So I look at it the same way, like not being in the 20% or the 1%. I'm not mad at that shit, but I see it, but I see the response that people get. That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of people have to learn how to just observe to see if you've been chosen, right? That's the key art that hasn't been taught to people, is just knowing when you've been chosen, when you've been selected. Like me, you know what I'm saying? I'm in a relationship right now, you know what I'm saying? But even before, when I was in my relationship, even before that, man, there is no better feeling than walking into a room full of beautiful women that haven't chosen you. Like that's a beautiful feeling, man, because you know, you don't got to do no type of prescripted value demonstration. You don't have to look for no indicators or interest. You don't have to worry about no keynote escalation. You don't got to worry about none of that shit. You're just free to do whatever it is you're there to do, you know? And it's a great feeling, man, because a lot of my life I spent, you know, my mind was like a little monkey. I was trying to always do something. Like, man, like, oh man, like, yeah, there's a girl that I like. There's something I can do to get her attention and to make her like me. Why isn't she liking me? Like, you know, motherfucker, because she ain't chosen you. It's just, nigga, you just haven't been chose. That's it. You know? So, once again, man, shout out to Kevin Samuels, man. This to me was a positive outcome of social media, you know? Like a lot of social media, like all social media isn't good, you know, but this to me is one area that this is one area where social media to me was beneficial, because you had somebody define something, stand 10 toes down on what it is they defined, and spoke their truth. You know, what are your comments? Let me know in the comment section below. You know, what are your thoughts? You know what I mean? AT is where it's at on most forms of social media. Make sure you follow me. And without further ado, I'm out of here, folks. Peace. Yep. Tripping with Theobold.
Let's go.
Caliente.
Tripping. Yep. Tripping. Tripping. Tripping with Theobold.
Tripping with Theobold.